How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant. Hope everybody enjoys the Memorial Day weekend, and now it kind of feels like almost like the official kickoff of summer in a way, which I forgot if, are we in the summer season technically? I don't think that's happened yet. It doesn't matter.
I think it's like mid-June, around that time when it's like officially starts.
That sounds
But
about right.
it certainly feels like it already.
I mean, yeah, like at least where I'm at, the weather's been all over the place, whether it be super hot or super cold, so... Well, it's not quite summer yet, but today is a beautiful day. So, if you can't tell by the whiteness, I am naturally pale, so that's one thing. But anyways, oh man, this year has definitely improved a lot from like last year, entertainment wise, in my opinion. Not to say that last year was bad, but there was a lot more just serviceable things. Like they did the job. Where this one, this is one of the best shows and video game adaptations ever. We're going to be talking about both, with a little bit of spoilers, Last of Us Season 2, or Last of Us 2 from whoever played the games like me and Byrne did. So, we're just going to give our quick rantings and overview of what we thought of this season, and then we're going to get into spoilers, so if you haven't caught up with it yet, definitely come on back and do so, just because you're not going to want to miss out. So this one, very similar to the game, where Ellie and Joel have been living in Jackson, having basically kind of living a sense of normalcy in the apocalypse, if you could say that. And, Joel, essentially their demons come back to haunt him from season 1, or, the first game too. And it just boils into a revenge story that's just gonna be tragic regardless of how you look at it. So, Neil Druckmann and Craig Mason, man, they just continue to deliver A+ work. This season, even I feel like I like this season a little bit better. I think pacing wise, it was a little bit better, and it was a shorter season, so maybe that kind of helped it. Where the last season I think was 8 or 9 episodes, this one was only 7, and I felt like it was pretty like hit the beat very well without feeling like something's too slow or something's too fast. So I'm going to give this season a hard 4 out of 5 just because it's damn near perfect. But again, and it sucks, like, I know when people think video game adaptations, they mostly think of movies, or at least that's how I also think of it sometimes. But this series is definitely a big exception of like, no, if you're going to watch a video game story or based off a video game, this is the shit to watch. So can't recommend it enough, especially for those who haven't seen the first season.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you haven't seen the first season, you got to definitely check that out before you watch season 2, because, yeah, it would feel like you were missing out on so much and jumping into the story too late. But for me, The Last of Us 2 is one of, if not one of my favorite games of all time. And I've played through that game multiple times, and with the addition of No Return, I've been playing it frequently here and there, just because the combat is so fun. But just everything they did with the story in that game felt so fresh and so challenging. And I mean, if you look at the response at the time to that game, it was definitely a challenging story for a lot of people. And I thought, this is a pretty big step forward for video game storytelling, and I think adapting that was going to be tough, because it was going to be interesting to see how sort of TV audiences react to the story that happens in this season. See if it's like the same or different from how video game fans reacted to the story when it initially came out. So when they announced the TV series, season 2 was always the one that I was most interested in, just for that fact alone, because it's like, different audiences with a similar story, what is it going to look like? And what is the adaptation going to look like? Because for the first season, the stuff that I really enjoyed from it was the things that were different, the expansions on the lore, the things that we didn't see that weren't in the game, that were sort of hinted at. And I think that's where, again, like you mentioned, Neil Druckmann, Craig Mazin, and Haley Gross, who also came on to this season from the second game, the way that they build out the world and expand on characters that we either briefly touched on or like just barely saw in the game, just because the video games are so point of view centric, those expansions feel like such a great companion piece to the games, much like how the first season felt, where you can interact with both and feel like you get a bigger grasp of the scope of the story. And and that's all the stuff that I really loved about it. A little different from you, I think the pacing did feel a little bit too quick on some certain aspects. I mean, it slowed down at the perfect times, but there were a few times where I was like, I wish we could just let these sort of moments breathe or sort of live in this sort of headspace for a little while. But with the way the TV series works, you gotta kind of keep going, otherwise you risk losing interest of your audiences. So I understand, within the adaptation, you have to like get the story at a pretty quick pace, and like you mentioned, the episode count this season definitely added on to that. But yeah, man, I felt like this was an excellent season of television. Again, there are things that I prefer in the game, there are things that I prefer in the TV series, but overall it feels like such premium television, with the way the production is for the series. You see it all on screen, from the cinematography to the costumes to the incredible set design of Seattle. It was just prime TV, and I feel like yeah, I would also give this season a 4 out of 5 for all those reasons. It was really good. I really enjoyed watching this, and especially watching it with people who hadn't played the game, because it was just fun seeing those reactions to the beats that we knew were coming. But it was cool seeing them through fresh eyes. So yeah, had a lot of fun with this season.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't experienced that, like watching with someone who hasn't played the game, like just to get it. But I like the TikToks you would send me in our private conversations of people reacting, particularly to episode 2. And it's like, I've already gone through this trauma. There's nothing that could faze me about the show anymore. And also, I think you put it the best way, Burn. Not that I'm gonna speak for you, but when you say it was a challenging thing for it, I look at it as like, people just suck and they can't just accept a game for what it was or the story. So for those of you who did have a problem with the second game and were part of the whole controversy behind it, or maybe agreed with that controversy, you can hop off. I don't care if you watch us. Like, F off, really. But let's get into the spoilers, shall we? I'm not going to get into that because that shit does heat me up. So like I said, if you haven't watched season 2 or maybe even played the game, I would say actually if you did play the game, you could watch this show optionally or not, because it's pretty optional, but you should still watch it anyways. Anyway, let's get to it. So I think you also made a good point. There are things from the game you like, and then there's things from the show, and I perfectly agree with you. I think it's also that's also the part of the problem too, is because when with the game, we're playing it as like a seamless experience, like we're just trying to go point A to point B. So there's a lot of things we can't expand upon, but then the show can't really bring about things we love, like whether it be customization, just the gameplay aspects of it, and some of those intense moments. But the show did a great job of that. I think the thing that really caught me the most was expanding on the characters, particularly Dina, and I think Isabella Merced casted as Dina, one of the best castings ever for any adaptation, in my opinion, like video game, comic book, whatever, because not only is Dina like beautiful in the game and just a great character, Isabella Merced managed to take it to the next level, not bring it live action. All her emotional beats, her attitude, her dialogue, her screen presence alone in every scene that she was in was just wow. I can't speak enough to it. And especially like when Ellie's playing the guitar, the Take On Me song, and just her face of like tearing up because she's like pregnant like she was in the game. That could be the hormones talking, but at the same time it's also just she loved Ellie. Like I think that was supposed to be the moment she realized, like, I want this girl. This is my person. And the other thing I really liked with her was her backstory in episode 6 and or episode 5, one of those two, how she kind of before she came to Jackson, that just kind of really expanded on that. And I like that her character just was more of an actual person. Not to say she wasn't a person in the game, but her motivations are improved in this one, where she's not just going with Ellie because she likes her. Like, she's going with her because she cared about Joel. And that scene in episode 1 where he's teaching her how to like fix a little lighting box and stuff like that. It was almost like that was an important figure to her as well. Everybody in Jackson. So I really liked her. She was the best part. I liked Luke. What's the actor's name again? I apologize. I don't want to say it wrong. The guy who played Isaac.
Oh, the guy who played Isaac was, oh man, you're getting me, Jeffrey Wright.
Jeffrey Wright, thank you. I was gonna say Lucas Wright, but I'm like that doesn't. That's another
No, no, no,
actor.
Jeffrey
Jeffrey Wright,
Wright.
thank you.
Yeah.
Him returning as Isaac because he voiced the character in the game, which I remember when that first happened. I could hear Burns' voice when he said, "You know, he played Isaac, right?" And I was like, "He did? I didn't even recognize it." But anyways, his couple scenes that he had in this season, because this is definitely more Ellie centric, like the video game, how it broke it up into halves essentially. Just man, he's so much more of a chilling character in this one, especially his episode in was it 5 or 6 that we got introduced to Isaac in that situation? I think it was 6, right?
I think it was the beginning of 5 or 4,
Okay,
actually.
maybe it was 4. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
just
4.
just seeing him like in the beginning, like in the early days of the apocalypse and stuff, and how he started the WLF or became one of the WLFs is like, holy shit, that's pretty messed up, and see him become this like paramilitary leader. Um, and then the last thing, I'm sorry, Brent, I know I've been talking a little bit, but it's just I can't stand. I love Isabella Merced so much. I like what they did with the character Seth, a very minor character in the video game, but he had some moments that just felt very human. Where at the whole Christmas party and stuff, how he said he called Ellie and Dina dykes or something like that, just being very disrespectful. In the game, you definitely didn't feel his apology or anything. Like he still came off like as a bigoted piece of shit. But I like that this show was like, I was drunk, I was an asshole, I'm sorry. Gave her his like tactical rifle and stuff, and like, I'm letting you out because I agree with what you're doing. Like it definitely came off more like an authentic character, not just kind of like a, given there are plenty of people that wouldn't change their minds on that kind of thing, but it just goes to show it's like the times do change, and I'm just glad they added that little improvement to that character.
Yeah, it adds a little bit of a dimension because yeah, in the games it's just straight up like he's like a total jerk. From the beginning that's all we really know of him. But adding that sort of complicated element to it, where yeah, he is one of those things, but then also like he agrees with Ellie like during the whole council thing. It's like yeah, it adds that sort of like element of like, wait a minute, like this guy's on my side. Is that like a good thing? What does that say about me? What does that say about the thing I want to do? Like,
I felt the same way. I was like, God
what
damn
I mean?
it.
So it adds that sort of that level of gray to it, where it's like yeah, like everyone doesn't want to take on this mission because of how risky it is, and the guy that you would least suspect to back you up is the one that is backing up. But then again, for the reasons of what happened the night before, it adds an element to it. It's like I don't know if it's a good thing if this guy's agreeing with me, but again, it makes it more interesting in a dramatic way. So yeah, I definitely liked how they added to all that. 100% agree with everything you said about Isabella Merced as Dina. Absolutely loved everything they did with that character throughout this season, expanding on her. Like you said, letting her be a little bit more fleshed out and letting that sort of romance between them two develop. Kind of in the game, it's very quick. Like we do get them sort of like it starts off without seeing the whole dance scene. We don't get that scene until later on in the game, so seeing that early on was a pretty big surprise. But I think getting that lets the progression of the romance sort of develop naturally. It feels like it's actually like happening, not sort of we're like jumping into it while it's already been going on in the background. Because in the game, again, you kind of like start off with all these things already having happened and only getting to see what happens later on. So yeah, getting to see them two sort of bounce off of each other and seeing their relationship grow, like you mentioned through the Take On Me scene, and then all the scenes coming after where they sort of like slowly progress their love for each other, especially after having a near death experience was really cool, and I really did enjoy that. Where I do see some people having some complaints about that, where it's like because we are sort of developing the love story at the same time that we're going through the revenge story, it sort of softens the revenge side of it. And I can definitely see that where it's definitely like the days of Ellie and Dina in Seattle do feel a little bit less dark than they do in the game. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's an adaptation. You have to do something a little bit different. At least I feel it. So it worked for me, and I like that throughout the season it sort of progresses into that darkness, where in the last episode especially, you get to see like it's very visually reminiscent of everything that we got in the game, where it's that sort of oppressive, dark. It's almost like like you're losing your soul the closer you get to your destination. So I did like that sort of progression. Did it feel light in the beginning? Yeah, kind of, but I think to get to where we do in the end for it being a TV series, I think that's something they kind of had to do to sort of show that journey from it being a little bit more innocent to no, this is the wrong choice that you're making here, Ellie. Please turn back at any point, please. You're putting these people in danger. So yeah, I did like what they did with all that stuff and all this expansion that they did in the early on with Jackson, especially episode 2 when we got to see that siege. From all the infected, something we didn't see in the game, something that was completely new, and something I think fans definitely wanted to see with how action light the first season was. Getting to see that horde defense in episode 2 was just chef's kiss, and to pair that up with the whole thing that goes on with Joel and Abby in the cabin, jumping back and forth between them two, just excellent tension building in TV, I think.
Yeah, when you told me about episode 2 and how essentially it should have been the whole the Night War episode in Game of Thrones. I forgot what that one was called. But like in the last season where all the Night Walkers and stuff came, the White Walkers. I mean, they came.
Yeah, the longest night.
Yeah, the longest night. Exactly. That's exactly what that should have been, and we could see everything this time, even though there was a blizzard and a storm. So that was great. The other thing I was gonna say is like, I guess I can kind of see that argument. I was just thinking about it in my head, but again, that's like that's the territory when it comes to adapting something. Like, because in the video game, we're just playing through it. We're playing through Ellie, unless you pay attention to the dialogue and stuff. And even then in the game, they're still getting to know each other, and they still have their jokes and stuff. So, I can kind of agree with that complaint, but at the same time, like I would playing devil's advocate, I'd be like, no, you're forgetting this is a series. It's not a game you can play through and just run right through it. So, the other thing I really did like. Casting wise, I didn't touch upon this just because, Isabella Merced stole it. But Caitlin Dever's Abby was another solid choice. She got a lot of shit because again, I also like how Abby in the video game was pretty jacked, for a young girl her age, but that's because she's been hell bent on revenge for years from what happened in the first game. And we're going to get more of that in season 3. So if you haven't played the game or seen this season, I won't spoil that for you too much. Or at least more than what the show already talked about, especially with Nora's scene in episode 6. And yeah, she was great. I really like the inclusion of some new characters, like Catherine O'Hara's her character, how she's like the therapist in Jackson. And we realized in the first episode how she hates Joel and opened up about that. We got to see why she hated Joel. Very justifiable, because her and then Joey Pants Joe Pantalone as her husband. Was it Eugene? Yeah, I think it was Eugene.
Yeah, Eugene.
Yeah, that was such a heart-wrenching episode just because we got to see what Joel and Tommy came from. We got to see how he raised Ellie, and that did a great job of recapping their flashbacks like in the video game, and how they were more cemented throughout Ellie's story and stuff, where this one was just like clump them all together. And yeah, just that episode, just that scene where basically Joel pulls of Mice and Men on Eugene. It was just, man, just so sad and so heartbreaking. But that's also evident of like we love Joel, like especially from fans and stuff like that. But you also have to remember he's a very imperfect person. Like that's kind of why everything caught up to him and what happens to him in the second game. And like many fans, I was very shocked when the second game happened, like the first or second mission of Joel getting beaten to death and dying. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what happened to my dude? But then when you're playing through it a couple times and really seeing it from both points of view, like Abby's and Ellie's, and we're gonna get Abby's in season 3, so that's what I'm really excited for as well. You understand why. I get pretty biased with Ellie, just because she's also one of my favorite video game characters. But you have to remember, when it comes to revenge and stuff, when it's eye for an eye, everybody goes blind. So that's just, the bed you make. And I liked how you pointed out the whole descent into darkness with her, because even though it did make light of it, I would look at it as that there's so many moments for her to just say, screw this, let's just go home. We got more shit to worry about back at home, and especially since Dina found out she was pregnant with Jesse's baby. It's like, you had plenty of moments to realize this is wrong and just let the sleeping dog lie. And then putting herself into the war zone, where I think Jesse made a good point. While I see Ellie calling him out as a hypocrite, he said, this is not our war. This is not something we have to inject ourselves in. And he's right. Like, why we're already trying to survive an apocalypse in a very harsh area. Why are we trying to do anything more? So, great point. I'm glad you pointed that out. But like I said, I just really like Caitlin Dever's things. And then the expanding on moments like the siege at Jackson, Joel's death, and then I would even say Ellie's growing up as Joel is taking care of her, living in her own, having essentially the life he never had as a dad, watching this girl grow up from a kid to a teenager, especially when he caught her in bed with another girl and she was getting a tattoo. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, I could deal with one or the other, but both in my house at the same time? Like, get out. I would be pissed too. So I thought that was a great episode, because he's just like, the fuck is this?
Yeah, I mean that is showing sort of not the deterioration of their relationship, but showing how their relationship changes as she got older.
Yeah.
I thought that flashback episode was absolutely excellent. Probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite of the season. This in episode 2. Yeah, just everything they did with that. It was almost directly ripped straight from the game. Of course, there's a lot of expansions with that, like you said, Joel's dad, was seeing Ellie develop in her relationships and stuff. So yeah, all of that really worked for me, and getting to see Pedro again is always great. So yeah, that episode was just beautifully done, and again, it goes to show how sort of violence like sort of disrupts the things that we could have, and that's sort of like ties into the overall theme of the games and now the show, that these cycles of violence sort of perpetuate themselves, and unless you break that chain, then it's always going to come back and get you. And that's why it feels like thematically I really enjoyed that game, and now this season of TV, because yeah, like you mentioned earlier, like there are so many points where Ellie could sort of turn back and just sort of break that cycle, and there's a lot of things for her now to live for, yet she continues on. And we didn't get to see that with Abby. We got to see the end of that journey, and we got to see obviously what that sort of chain reaction that caused. So getting to see all that on screen and portrayed by these really great actors was really well done. And I did love how they added more of the WLF and the Seraphites this early on, because we do get them in the game, but we don't get them expanded on too much until later on, and the things that we're probably going to see in season 3. But getting to see what we saw of them and how they're also caught in this cycle of violence. When that one scene with when Isaac's doing that interrogation, where he's saying, you broke the treaty, we broke the treaty, you did, and then we did. It's like it just kept going on and on. It's like at some point you just lose sight of what your differences were, and you're just attacking each other now at this point. So yeah, getting to see all that was really well done. I thought it was really well written and stuff, and again ties in the whole thematics of the second game really, really well, and makes me really excited to see what we're going to see in season 3, because that's all my favorite stuff from the game. So it's getting to see that side of it, and getting to see more of Abby, and like you mentioned, Caitlin Dever just absolutely nailed it. Doesn't have the physicality, of course, that's a sort of a gameplay thing to sort of differentiate the two characters, but yeah, like just spiritually, just the same way that Bella Ramsey portrays Ellie, like they just embody that character. So yeah, really looking forward to what they do with all that, because the way that they tied it all in, again, thematic wise, character wise, in this season, I feel this is just gonna jump to another level with the stuff we get coming up.
100% agree with you. And I like that they didn't go for the super jacked version, like I kind of want, not super jacked, but more buff version of Abby, like in the video game, because seeing Caitlin Dever pop up in the first and second episode, especially when she runs into Joel, the fact that she's not more built than Bella, it's just great contrast. They're very similar, ladies. They have similar motivations. They're just two sides of the fence. I wouldn't even say two sides of the same coin, because they're literally almost like mirror images of each other. So, given that kind of the same thing, but it makes more sense when I think about it. Anyways, So I can't wait to see season 3 because I would say Ellie's version in the game, her gameplay was more like survival horror, like action horror. Like no, I would say survival horror. Whereas Abby's is more like action horror. Like I did the second playthrough. I love playing her character a little bit more. There are both two things I like. Like I love Ellie's design and some of her weapons, but I love Abby's gameplay and her design and a couple of her guns and stuff like that. So I'm definitely excited to see how they're going to do it. I hope they inject a little bit more action without sacrificing stories. So we'll have to see. Overall, I really like you said, the production of Seattle and some of those key moments, and even in Jackson. Phenomenal. Like we got to see more of Jackson growing into an actual thriving city again, not just a tiny little settlement. And some of the moments like when she catches up to Nora at the hospital, the theater, and just we're going through the streets and stuff like that, whether it be raining or daylight, and the aquarium, it just brought back all those dark feelings in the game. Like you just know something bad is gonna happen, and just this is not a good place to be. So I really like those aspects. I like the little Easter eggs that they had from the game, like how Ellie is working at her like a little gunsmithing table in her room in the garage, because there's plenty of those in the game where you can upgrade your guns, customize them. So I was disappointed we did not get a custom Beretta like we did in the game, but that's a video game. That's a little more justifiable. In real life, it's like nobody's really an expert gunsmith. They just clean them, they maintain them, shoot them. That's it. So I really like that. And then we're gonna keep seeing more. We got another bloater, and seeing that in action was great. We got to see those stalkers.
The stalkers, dude,
yeah,
and the spores. Oh, I love that they added that stuff.
Freakish, man. But we have yet to see one of the best clickers and best things in all of zombie genre, fiction. I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't played the game or those who haven't seen this yet or anything. So, I don't want to wait till season 3, but we have to, and I hope they bring that one to life. They kind of need to. If we can do a bloater and stalker and all that shit, they got to bring the big bad that Abby deals with. It was one of the scariest things. I remember playing that during COVID while you're listening to me on Bluetooth, and just like, Bernie, tell me what's going to happen. You're like, you got to play it, man. You got to write it out. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm scared. Just keep going. Shit. You definitely were like saying like, dude, stop being a pansy. Just get after it. And I'm like, I felt like Tina and Bob's Burgers. Just,
It's just something we all had to get through on our own. But yeah, very much looking forward to that thing for sure.
Exactly, but other than that, like I said, aside from a couple little design things from the game, I had like the not lack of custom guns, and also very nitpicky, stupid thing, but I'm just gonna say it. I wish Bella's hair was cut a little bit more, like in the video game. But she's also got just luscious hair. It's nice and straight. It always looks clean. But I'm just like, no, I wish they cut a little bit more like Ellie's did, because I feel like that also kind of shows that growth. That how she had the ponytail as a little kid. This time she has like the ponytail with the thing with a bun up and stuff like that. So either way, those are very nitpicky things, but phenomenal season all around.
Mm-hmm. And then just, I guess, the little nitpicky things for me. I definitely would have liked to see a little bit more from Jesse. Loved his character in the game. Young Mazzino did a great job in portraying him in the series. I thought he did fantastic. Just very much ripped straight from the game, almost like beat for beat.
He had good energy in every scene he was in. He's like, yep, that's Jesse in real life right there. So.
Yeah, definitely showed how, you could definitely see this guy becoming a leader in the community at some point down the line. Just, really cool character. Would have liked to see more of him. And, of course, I would have liked to see more of Tommy, because I love that character. But I think maybe we'll probably get a little bit more next season. We'll see. But yeah, just definitely want a little bit more from them, just selfishly, though, because, they were really great actors, and the characters were a lot of fun. So that's my sort of, like, nitpicks.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we'll kind of have to, especially Gabriel Luna kills it as Tommy. Like him, Pedro, Isabella, Caitlin, and Bella. I'm 50-50 on her. Like I love her as Ellie, but I'm also like, I hate to say it, the fan casting got me with whole Kaylee Spaney should have been Ellie, but Bella still kills it. Like she is Ellie in those key moments where that matters. So, great casting by this team. Like I can't praise them enough for all the decisions they've made so far. Can't wait for season 3. I don't know if they already greenlit season 4, but those are early talks that we'll probably get a season 4 depending on how we want to break it up. So, which would make sense too with how the game, because after you play Ellie and Abby's side, there's almost like a little like epilogue part. So I think they could definitely have some fun with that.
Yeah, I think I saw that. They're definitely green light for season three. Hopefully, I think shooting will start at the end of June at some point. That's the speculation. So hopefully, the wait for season three is not as long as the wait for season two due to all the writer strikes and all that. So yeah, if they can get that going quickly as possible, that would be great. HBO, because it's all my favorite stuff. I need to see it now.
Neil, Craig, HBO, given you're probably hearing this 1,000 times over, but please try and get it done ASAP. And thank you guys. Thank you to those people, the creators and, the creatives behind it. Just fantastic work. But I got nothing else, Bern. Anything else you wanted to shout out or critique?
No, nothing else that comes to mind for me. Just, again, really fun season of TV. Really enjoyed it, seeing the game come to life. And yeah, just hats off to the production team, because they absolutely nailed it. It was really cool to see all this stuff that we saw in the game in the TV show, and just makes me want to go play the game again, which I probably will.
I got so many games to play, so I probably should hold off playing it again, but I really want to. So for those of you who did stuck through our spoilers and watched the season, played the game as well, feel free to let us know what you thought about it in the comments. We'd love to keep the conversation going. And until next time, everybody, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we will catch you all on the next one.